All right, welcome back to episode 2 of the budget foxbody build. Last video, we discovered we had the piston issue. Wasn't sure what we were gonna do. I've been back and forth on it. It's been quite a few days since I have gotten to this point. Since then, I've had a motor secured. Then the guy backed out. Was gonna rebuild this one, drove almost 4 hours in total to go pick up a new set of E7 heads and stock 5.0 pistons to just try to rebuild this motor. But today I did a little negotiating on Facebook and I got a new motor for it. So the motor is a XXX block, so it is a roller motor out of a 90s car. He pulled it out of an SN95 car that I was running when pulled. Along with the motor, I got a wiring harness, air cleaner, upper and lower intake, but I'm not going to use that because it is for the SN95 and I've heard bad things about the elbow in them. New set of Ford Racing plug wires, distributor, power steering pump, brake pads for an SN95, don't need those, but he wanted me to take them. And then an upgraded fuel rail for a 5.0 car. But the block, I actually traded it for a couple Snap-on tools. So no money was spent on this. Old me spent the money, new me did not spend the money, so that's what matters. It does have a clutch on the back. Not too sure what the clutch is, so we're gonna have to dust it off, find some numbers on it. But next step here is to get this motor completely tore down and get it pulled. Before we can put that motor in though, we got a couple things. I'm gonna paint the engine bay and then we are gonna get that rust fixed. So we got a couple things before we can get started on that. All right, starting to pull some things out of the car. Just going to take the battery out and realize there is 4 total grounds here. You got one that goes all the way down through the radiator support, all the way up underneath over there. You've got one hooked right here, a short one, and then one that was down and then hooked into the timing cover. Was there a ground issue with the car? Maybe, but I do not think that many grounds are going to be needed. Get this ground out. All right, next we're going to unhook the oil pressure line. This line runs into the car and up to an oil PSI gauge, so you can see what your oil pressure is inside the car while driving, just to make sure it never drops down or anything like that. All right, so the previous owner did say that when he was running this motor, it would drop to 0 PSI after a little bit of running, and he thought it was a wiring issue. Well, this is a manual oil gauge, so it is based directly off of that oil pressure up into the gauge, so there are no wires involved. So that is just another tail sign that something was going on with this motor. It's important we save this big piece right here because we are going to be using it on the next block once we get it in. All right, next we're going to be getting the dipstick tube out. A lot of aftermarket paints will have a threaded spot for the dipstick tube to slide into, but on the factory ones it will just slide down to the block, nothing really secure in it, and that seems to be the case for this one. So it is usually just a little bit of wiggling and it'll free up eventually. This one is free, but I think something's down there holding on to it, so you might have to go under, see what it is. All right, it's just pinched up with the header, so we'll have to get the headers off before we can pull that out. All right, header is free. You're kind of hitting the steering shaft back there, but hopefully it creates enough room. Yep, so got that out now, another piece gone. I like to organize but don't have much space, so everything is just getting shoved on this shelf, and it's a future me problem. The engine stand I normally use is being used elsewhere, so the block is just going to be sitting on the ground because this was kind of a short notice deal and I did not have time to go get another one, so it is just going to be sitting on the ground until I get the new motor stand in. So we can go ahead and get this motor unhooked. I would never do this, but I don't have my motor stand like I said. I have another one on the way, but it is just on the ground on a wooden block. Like I said, don't do that, but we are a spare change garage. The rest of the bolts are super simple to get out of this car. We have 2 motor mount bolts on each side. I'm gonna go the ones up from the bottom of the block. We have 2 starter bolts to get out and then 6 bell housing bolts. Once we do that, we should be able to get the motor crane over here. We'll hook the chain up from the head bolt to one at the back. We'll be able to pick it up, separate it from the trans, and then get this motor out of here and clear some room to fix that rust and get the new motor in. Bell housing bolts are out, all 6 of them. There was one in there that was 11/16. Normally they're all 5/8. My stubby wrenches don't go up to 11/16, so I had to get really creative trying to get this one out because it was the one tucked all the way down here, but on that side, which is tighter because of the brake booster and everything. So it was a lot harder to get out. Fighting with these starter bolts. I always end up making them some sort of contraption like this to reach the back one. Once we get these wheels off, it'll clear up a little more space for me to crawl under the car and get to those motor mounts, which is the last piece we need to pull the motor out. When you get down here, you get a really good view at that rust from up underneath. Big problem, gotta fix it. So normally when I'm taking out a motor, I'll have an intake plate that sits up top to hook the chain to so I can pull the motor out. Since we don't have that, we kind of have to get a little creative. What we're going to do here is we're going to take an old head bolt and we're going to run the head bolt back in the head or to the block, stretch it across here, and then we're going to take another one, pull it a little tight, leave a little slack, and then we will, wrong one. We'll get it threaded. Maybe. There we go. Into the cylinder head. So that now, just like we took the other motor out, because it also does not have an intake on it, we now have a place to grab and pull this motor out. Motor crane is hooked up. I had to go from the side because I am very limited on space as far as the front of the car goes. I've never pulled a motor this way. I'm sure somebody will have something terrible to say about it. Hopefully it goes well. I'm gonna set it up, record all of it. So what we have to do now, once we get a little bit of pressure off of it, we'll be able to go ahead and separate that bell housing and motor. I'm gonna go put a jack under the transmission to keep it from falling once it does get separated, keep that input shaft from taking any extra damage. So let's get working on that. Let's get this motor up and separate that. All right, I got a jack under the transmission. So let's go ahead. Up. See if we can start prying a little bit anywhere. Get separated. It doesn't look like it. So what I normally do, this is a lot easier for the front. Push a little bit, try to get some separation. Get that separation, get in there with the pry bar, work it. Just like that, we are free. So now take it up a little more. Keep working to the left. Weaseling it out of there until it is fully free. Almost. All right, and we are fully free from the back. Now we just got to get around all of this junk and pull it out. So now it's just straight up. Spill all the coolant out of it. There we go. The issue now is I didn't think this far ahead and I didn't get a second block of wood when I grabbed that one. So now I do not have one for this motor. I know it's kind of a junk motor at this point, but it's not the last you're gonna be seeing of it. But I still don't wanna just throw it on the ground. Try to keep the oil pan nice because that is gonna be reused. So I'm gonna try to figure something out to get under there so it kind of sits pretty like that one. I was gonna put them beside each other and make a really cool thumbnail. But all I made was a mess. Shop light that doesn't work. We're gonna see if I can get it to balance on that. It seems pretty sturdy. Seems like it'll hold up, so we're gonna see. Answer to the question, I absolutely can balance it on a light. A couple differences with the motor is really just the clutch and that this one doesn't have a broken rod. Not sure what this clutch is. He called it a King Cobra clutch. Never heard of that. Might be pulling off this clutch. It is a McLeod. I have used them personally and I really like their clutches. So we're gonna probably take this one off, put it on this motor. A couple other things to just pull off, like I'm gonna be pulling off this crank pulley. We're gonna be putting on the other crank pulley as long as it bolts up with the harmonic balancer. But from there, I'm gonna call the video. It's late, I have quite the mess to clean up. So it's a rather shorter video. And the next one, we are gonna start working. on the engine bay, getting the engine bay prepped, getting that motor on the engine stand, and getting it ready to drop in. So for now, I will see you in the next one.